Welcome to New Year's Eve, or what is allegedly the New Year. The eve of the alleged New Year 2025. This is December 31st, 2024, with 2025 allegedly upon us shortly tonight. This is, of course, your host, the one and only Bruce McGuire, here with you, discussing New Year's Eve, New Year, and all of the events in the past cycle, however one chooses to measure it, in typical Mindshock fashion with logic and reason at the forefront, which is going extinct in the modern Western world, so we must do all we can to preserve it. If you want to help support the channel, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, the Bruce McGuire channel, the home of Mindshock. Hit the bell for notifications if you're not getting them. You can check us out on Patreon. You could even sign up for the free tier. It's totally free, and you should be getting notifications for all new live streams and podcasts on there. You could also check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. You could also be a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. Or if you are with us here live in the live chat, and I will try to get to each and every one of them. Okay, the usual suspects up in here. Heracles starting this off with a good question. Happy New Year, or is it actually? Jess Palmer, Haley Green, the one and only Justin Johnson, Les Xylophone, Aaron Mavernine, Happy New Year to all. I won't be staying, but just wanted to say hello to you as well, Aaron. Sarah Catherine in here saying, I had a New Year's Eve dinner from Cracker Barrel. It was very good. Yummy. And also just reporting in here, Truth Trollette, Flatless, Flat Bob, Big Pine Sailing, Scott Hawkins, something else is here. Lightning 300 MI does not know where they are. You are in Mindshock right now. You're in Mindshock land. Hello, Dylan. Conscious Machine 413. All right. So, where are we going to start tonight off? What's everybody doing tonight? Are we going down the rabbit hole of the masses? The masses being gaslit into thinking it's a new year when it's not a new year. The masses being gaslit into giving their energy, their celebration to demonic occult forces, possibly interdimensional reptilian shapeshifters, a la David Icke, possibly time-traveling Bigfoot Terminators from Hollow Earth. Shout out Nathan Reynolds for that one. Big Pine Sailing says, y'all see the sky tonight? Venus is bright as can be. Mars is red AF. I mean, I don't know. There's supposedly a lot of fog in a lot of places. The fog is upon us all. What does that mean? I don't know if we should even go down that rabbit hole. First and foremost, I actually went over the New Year's Eve or New Year's conspiracy. That will be back online tomorrow. So for anybody who hasn't seen that one, you could watch that. That'll be re-premiering New Year's Day tomorrow. And I went over the history of the calendar to a certain extent, but just a brief recap for any new coincidence theorists joining us tonight. Authority-worshipping cultist bootlickers. Scientism cultists of all avenues. Are there any in the chat tonight? Make yourselves known. All are welcome, of course. Mindshock would not exist without them. So Janus, of course, is the Roman god of two faces. God of two faces. Presided over the beginning and end of conflict. Transitions, time, duality, gates, doorways. In some iteration, he's also the god of war and chaos specifically. And so if this is a type of opening of the gate or interdimensional doorway of sorts for chaos, again, depending on whatever source you're using for these historical etymological breakdowns, I do not, of course, do not claim anything is true or untrue here on Mindshock. The motto is and always was, the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. And I'm not even sure about that. So, if this is all for chaos, Illuminati-driven chaos to keep the peasants and the peons so discombobulated in this maelstrom, in this absolute maelstrom of confusion, of intentional confusion and discordianism, to not even know where they are or what calendar they are, while their energy is being siphoned by these interdimensional demonic forces of the occult. Imagine somebody who just came in here randomly because it's a live on New Year's Eve. They've never heard of Mindshock before. That's a good intro, isn't it? Oh man. Welcome, Christopher Allen. Is it Carrie or Carrie Skates? Maria Chilster Dlukes. Am I at the right place? What do you think after that intro? So April, I also did a podcast on April Fool's Day, which is supposedly the true New Year based on the real astronomical cycles. So obviously, if the Illuminati is controlled by these dark, occult, satanic forces, Satan, the father of lies, everything would be inverted. So on April Fool's Day, the energy by these corrupt scum Illuminati puppeteers, string pullers, the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, if they want that energy to be focused on foolery, on just flat out foolery, to cast some kind of negative energy on the true New Year, while hoodwinking everybody into celebrating with positive energy on New Year's Eve, because everything in this fallen satanic world must be inverted. And if Satan controls this world, if Earth is Satan's kingdom, does that all make sense? Again, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. I am just positing theories. There's a lot of Dunning-Kruger goofs that get triggered just by the very discussion of these things because they're too mentally weak to even consider these possibilities. We're not even talking about believing the possibilities. In a quote attributed to one of the ancient Greeks, Aristotle, Socrates, whoever, it is the mark of an educated mind to consider an idea or concept as true without believing in it. Without believing in it. Nobody's talking about believing anything. We're just discussing ideas here. Flapop says the New Year day changes from year to year on the lunar calendar. Solar calendar is the same every year, just depends on what you're waiting for the sun to line up with. Well, I mean, that's another rabbit hole, too, because you have all these ancient calendars, which were not even properly translated. Then you have this modern calendar that we are in, which is incredibly inaccurate, and has all these adjustments, and who knows what adjustments were made in the past. So each year isn't even uniform. And then, of course, you go down the rabbit hole, are we in a heliocentric or geocentric universe? If the Earth isn't even going around the sun, I mean, what does this all mean? But obviously, the thoroughly indoctrinated scientism cultist goofs will be too terrified to even honestly, logically, and objectively examine any of these questions. Nobody in the mainstream will do it, obviously. But again, that's why Mindshock exists. I mean, calendars, like anything, were created to I mean, obviously, on the plausible deniability side, I mean, you do have to have. Some people believe the cathedral of stars above us and all these celestial bodies, it's the clock. It's basically a clock mechanism. And you have the from short to long measurements of time. And it's kind of hard to argue against that. It's kind of hard to argue against it. But technically, we are on the what is known as the Gregorian calendar, which allegedly went into effect October 1582. And look at the events that took place since 1582. And how every year was slightly different for various reasons. According to the Julian calendar, the average solar year was exactly 365 and a quarter days long. So then there was a leap year every 4 years. I mean, just look at the goofery involved with these inaccurate calendar systems that the peasants just accept unquestioningly. Unquestioningly. You have all these ancient calendars. I believe the Mayan calendar only needed one adjustment every 52 years. So the Mayan calendar is supposedly incredibly accurate, but also mistranslated. So it's going to be tough. It's tough to break this down. Again, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. Maria Walker says the Bible gives clear instructions on how to find the new year. You have a passage you want to examine? Because obviously the Bible, I mean, you're talking about the Bible written in English, mistranslated many, many times, broken telephone. So again, just to reiterate, Janus, of which January is based on, the god of chaos, war, gates, doorways. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff. Pretty crazy stuff. Before the Gregorian calendar, April 1st actually was the New Year's Day. And of course, that was from previous calendars as well. And again, the basis for April Fool's Day was, I mean, it's multifaceted, of course, and, you know, we're going back to 1582. So some people continued to celebrate, this is the so-called official narrative, people continued to celebrate the New Year on April 1st, and they were called April Fools because the calendar switched by the powers that be, and all the slaves were accepted to switch with it, so they called fools the slaves that didn't want to appease the slave masters. Very, very curious. And what happened within the Mudflood Tartaria reset theory in 1582? What was the real reason for the shift from the Julian to the Gregorian? Like the behind-the-scenes reason. The reason us peasants are not privy to. So, yeah, I mean, it's really, really curious. But if you want to control a population, obviously, having the population illiterate would be the easiest. That's why a lot of slave plantation owners didn't even want the slaves to read. But now, the next step, let's say they do read, you still want to keep them confused. You might not want to have them even know where they are, let alone when they are. If you have a confused population, very, very easy to control a confused population. Flatless says the Mayan calendar was more accurate than ours, and their cosmology was flat Earth on the back of a crocodile. You mean turtle? Turtles are really curious too, for as timekeepers. And for the evolution goofs, the evolution video actually triggered a lot of scientism goofs. It was actually kind of hilarious. You can check that. You can check that podcast out on Mindshock. It was really funny. A lot of goofs got triggered by that. But it's really, really curious that the back of the turtle, I'm trying to get a good image here to really illustrate this. But I mean, it's always tough because you have certain calendars that were 10 months or months, and then or 10 or 13. Now, I'm trying to remember, were there any that were 12 other than the current one? Than more modern history? Were there any ancient calendars based on 12? I'm not sure. They were usually, I've seen 10 and 13 in a lot of systems. But not 12. But this is the Mayan 13 months lunar calendar on the back of the turtle. And of course, turtles live to be incredibly old, multiple centuries. So, it is really, really curious into all of these correspondences within all of these ancient civilizations, not just the Mayans. I mean, you had them all over the world, similar systems, and then you have animals. I mean, here's a breakdown of the actual turtle shell and how it corresponds to an astronomical system. I mean, this is really curious stuff, is it not? I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating, isn't it? I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating. Now, the coincidence theorists, they'll maintain this is all coincidental, right? There's no creator. There's no actual cosmological plan of any kind or uniformity within nature as above, so below. This is all mere coincidence, according to the coincidence theorists, the authority-worshipping cultists that just believe whatever they were taught with Rockefeller textbooks in indoctrination facilities, and what they see on the idiot box, and all of society just mindlessly goes along with all of it without questioning anything. But if your brain is functional, if you can actually utilize logic and reason, that opens the door to learning. That opens the door to knowledge. So, yeah, it's interesting how it's seemingly the more modern the system, the more inaccurate it is. I mean, it's kind of curious, isn't it? So, yeah, very, very interesting. Bama Dog Mom says, "Hey everyone, Happy New Year. We are taking it easy here because our new shelter dog had to start his heartworm treatment yesterday and he has to be kept very calm." Oh, best wishes to your dog and a speedy recovery. Dog is an acronym for God. Some people think dogs are the obviously called man's best friend for a reason. How many times has someone's dog betrayed them? Unless the dog was, ill mentally or otherwise, and in old age. I mean, there are stories of that happening. But in general, a healthy dog, quite loyal. Quite loyal. Yeah, anagram, Flat Bob. Yeah. Anagram. I've been up for a really long time, so I'm actually, I don't think if you think I'm not gonna make it to the chimes. I also, Saturn, the god of time, enslaves everybody, so people are always on someone else's time and they're not free. I do not run my life based on a society's time. So yeah, I'll be going to bed when I feel like going to bed. Flat Bob says I'm gonna stay awake until next year. Nobody can stop me. How do you know it's really next year though? Sarah G says dogs make this experience bearable. I mean, all animals are actually. I mean, because animals are just honest. I mean, I don't know about reptiles, though. I mean, snakes get a bad rap, but I mean, snakes are kind of honest, too, aren't they? I mean, they're not going to make any bones about it when they start hissing at you and flicking their tongue. They're going to bite you, they're going to bite you. They're not going to pretend to be your friend and then bite you. But yeah, in general, I mean, animals will eat you for survival if they need to, and the ones that don't, I mean, they're going to be kind to be kind. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously dogs are great, but I mean, all animals are pretty honest. Unlike humans. Many humans are not honest. You know what's kind of curious too, though, in general, like children also before full indoctrination and trauma-based mind control take place, like younger kids are pretty honest too. They're not necessarily, unless they've been corrupted. I mean, they're not necessarily like who here remembers, like if you don't have any kids or you don't have any younger relatives, remember back to when you were, let's say, in kindergarten. How many kids were trying to screw you over in kindergarten? There might have been a couple, depending on their parents, but in general, I mean, they're pretty honest. You just want to play. Let's be friends and play. And if someone doesn't like you, they'll call you a poopy head to your face. To your face. They'll be honest about it. But then after the indoctrination and the trauma-based mind control in modern society takes place, I mean, when kids are reaching double digits or so in age, then the dishonesty can start to creep in. Bama Dog Mom says, but seriously, turtles are awesome. Mine love their shells to be scratched. They are so cool to watch. A lot of work, though. Yeah, turtles are cool. Haley Green is laughing. What are you laughing about specifically? Dylan says, you knew I was a snake when you let me in. Haley says, spiders are the best. I've never had a pet spider. Ryan says, donkeys never lie. Lightning 300 MI says, why does Rudolph wear a bell? His horns don't work. That was a joke Stallone Said, I think in Rocky 1 or Rocky 2, why do cows wear bells? Because their horns don't work. He also had another pretty funny one. What's the difference? This one used to crack the kids up because I probably saw Rocky. I mean, this was a long time ago. So I repeated this joke in grade school because I don't know. The younger, I probably saw Rocky earlier than most of my classmates. So if I saw it in maybe second or third grade, most of the other kids probably hadn't watched it that young. And I would repeat his joke. What's the difference between a piano and a fish? You can tune a piano, but you cannot tune a fish. I don't know why that's so funny. I don't know. It's kind of funny. But that reminded me of that one because he also said, why do cows have wear bells? Stallone, quite the screenwriter, is he not? Stallone, quite the screenwriter. He might not be Steven Seagal level, but he's quite the screenwriter. Chillster Deluxe says, I wasn't going to get another animal, but the cat moved in. We think black 4 months old wanted to stay, so it did. Woman across the back from me. Justin grew up with black widows and scorpions and rattlesnakes. What's your opinion on those? Scorpions and rattlesnakes get a pretty bad rap as well. Yeah, what's everybody's opinion of scorpions and snakes? Some people think that reptiles, because they're somehow related to the interdimensional reptilian shapeshifters, possibly at the head or near the head of the Illuminati controlling this fallen world and manipulating mankind to their ends, they're somehow related, the reptilian brain, etc., etc. Flat Bob says, I'm not a big fan, honestly. Justin said, as long as you leave them alone, you are good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. The cold-blooded nature, the killing you without a second thought thing. I mean, they're obviously quite different than cats or dogs. Susan says, I grew up in New York City, never went to ball drop, not interested in the crazy, but would go to Times Square any other time. I was there for New Year's once many, many, many moons ago. It was definitely crazy. Probably nowhere near as crazy as now. This would have probably been around 1990. Possibly. I don't remember, actually. It was so long ago. It was a madhouse, but you could still kind of get around. Not like even I remember when I went to New York City many years after that on a regular weekend, it kind of seemed almost as wild as it did decades past. Let me double check the New York. What was the New York City population in 1990? I'm not 100% sure on the year. I mean, I'm sure people came from out of town, but so it's about 7.3 mil. Interesting. Interesting. So in 2000, it went up to 8 mil. In 2020, 8.8 mil. I think it dropped recently. I mean, I don't know. It takes a while for them to get accurate numbers. So supposedly, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. I don't remember the exact year I was there. It's quite a few decades ago now. Quite a few decades. How time flies. Justin Johnson says baby scorpions and baby snakes are supposedly more dangerous because they don't conserve their venom. Oh, here's an interesting topic for Mindshock. What does everybody think about rattlesnakes killing you unless you have some kind of deadly disease or cancer and you're dying? Then they cure you. What does everybody think about that? I haven't really seen a podcast on that. So supposedly venom can be very healing if you're sick. But if you're healthy, then you just die or get really sick. I mean, it's kind of a weird paradox, isn't it? Wait, Justin, are you talking? You never heard what I just said now? Or are you talking, or are you talking about? Are you reacting to people texting in the chat or what I just said? Wait, do people not know that? Wait, do people not know that the venom cures? Oh, okay. Wow. Oh, I thought people knew that. Oh, wow. Okay, let's bring some receipts in the house. I didn't know that was like something people didn't know. All right, let's get some receipts up in here. Check this out. This is straight from NIH.gov. I mean, this is a mainstream academic source here. I mean, this isn't even like some kind of woo-woo health, alternate health blog. This is straight. I mean, it came up first result on Google. I mean, this is, yeah, I didn't know that this was, I didn't know that people didn't know this. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember when I found this out, but many years ago. I'll put it, just give me a second, I'll put it on the screen. Yeah, I did not realize, but that's curious because if you're not sick, it kills you. But if you're sick and dying, it heals you. It's just just one of these weird paradoxes of life. Is this just the sense of humor of the creator or the rules of the universe? So here we go. This is National Institute of Health. Venom from snakes is an important agent for curing many types of cancers. Many research publications discussed in this review showed a complete remission of tumor cells after treatment with molecules derived from snake venoms. And this is article PMC 3627178, therapeutic potential of snake venom in cancer therapy. Well, the way they found this out is because people that were dying, they had cancer and they were dying, they got bit. That's how they first figured that out. Because that's been happening for a long time. Just Reporting says, possibly due to induction, if you get bit by any poisonous animal, if you taste your pee immediately because the antidote is there. Well, I've never heard that before. Wow. Ooh, I've never heard that before. Well, that's interesting. You know what else is curious? Like just these rules of the universe. In the desert, where there's nothing except cactus, cactus juice actually has a lot of electrolytes. Like a lot. And drinking the cactus juice will save your life. So in a desert with no water, the only thing that grows is a fruit that will save your life. I mean, there's just a lot of these curiosities. I just find them fascinating. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of I don't think it matters what kind of cancer you have. As long as the venom enters your bloodstream, so you can get bit anywhere. I mean, I could try to find. Let me see if I can find the actual cases of people that were bit. on PBS actually aired a documentary, The Venom Cure. Yeah, because I remember seeing a case about this. I mean, it was a long time ago where some guy, I forgot if it was brain cancer. He had a specific type of cancer, and he was doing his bucket list. He was going hiking in places because he only had a few months to live or whatever. He gets bit by, I think it was a rattlesnake. I'm not sure what kind of snake. And then he's just magically better. But supposedly, just looking through stats, venomous snake bites kill thousands every year. That's kind of a lot. That's a lot more than sharks. So snakes are quite deadly. Hmm. Apparently, scorpion scorpions also, like scorpion stings also cured people's conditions, and some of these conditions weren't even life-threatening. Like someone just had like some kind of chronic, like relatively bad chronic. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do a whole podcast on this. I don't want to spend the entire podcast just searching for this, but it's actually it's just so curious how the people that aren't sick, unless they're super young and healthy, then they could survive. But in general, like an average person, like an older person, they're not necessarily gonna survive. I mean, snake bites kill thousands and thousands of people every year. So it's just so curious how these deadly bites that are deadly under normal circumstances, if you have some kind of horrible life-threatening disease or chronic disease, then it cures you. I mean, I'm sure, I'm sure it's not everybody. I'm sure you could probably find cases of people with horrible diseases that did get killed by the whatever bit them. But it's just also curious. Chillster says maybe the venom made their body alkaline and killed the cancer that way. And supposedly they identified the compounds in the venom, and so now they're isolating those compounds and then just injecting them. I guess, however they were doing the treatment. Truth Trollette says I heard bee venom can cure a lot of things. Yes, supposedly people with allergies, not allergic to bees, but allergic to many other things, and they got stung by a bee, and then their allergies go away. There's a lot of, I mean, this is all anecdotal, of course, but yeah, very interesting stuff. Flap Bob says, so Bruce, the thing with spiders is they have too many legs, and the thing with snakes is that they don't have enough legs. SJSU Philosopher says, please investigate the realty firm that Maddie and Xana worked for to follow the money. They talk about the Idaho student case. Interesting angle there. Yeah, I do have, I think I have one or two more episodes to get back online, and then I have a few more new episodes to make on that. Alright, so let's get back to the new year. Let's look back on this past year. So 2024, definitely an interesting year. A lot of madness. Now, what else is curious? Let's go all the way back to 2020. Perfect sight. The year of perfect sight. So what's curious, 2020, COVID year. And that really was an awakening for many. Just the aftermath of COVID. how so-called governments, the powers that be, sought to control everything, and that woke a lot of people up. For some people, it was 9/11. For others, it was. I mean, what are the main wake ups? I guess 9/11 and COVID were probably the two biggest ones, right? I mean, those are kind of big. Those are kind of big for most people. I'm trying to actually remember. Justin Johnson says moon landings. Well, yeah, but I'm talking about at the time. I mean, I know that there were a few people at the time who were calling shenanigans on the moon landing. Not a lot, but I do recall stories of people calling shenanigans as they were watching live. So without the internet, you know, it obviously there was no way to really get that idea out beyond whoever you were talking to. I mean, nobody's gonna, you know, publish that. But oh, Flat Bob says the Connecticut incident. Yes, the Connecticut incident was a big one as well. Yeah, that was a big one. And then, of course, flat Earth for many people. Oh, chemtrails. Yeah, chemtrails. Yep. Les Xylophone says Columbine. Well, I don't know too many people that actually. I mean, there's a lot of people investigating it, and they were calling shenanigans on the official narrative because there were more shooters or whatever. Nothing added up. I don't specifically recall people researching Columbine and then going to Bill Cooper, Alex Jones, etc., straight from Columbine. But from 9/11, I think 9/11 was probably. Let's do a poll. Justin Johnson says Oklahoma City bombing. Yes, but what about at the time, though? Like, you could say Ruby Ridge, too. Ruby Ridge got some attention. Ruby Ridge, because I remember that one. That one was kind of big. Too. And Waco as well. Justin Johnson, Boston Marathon, yeah. Boston Marathon, when it was happening, I do remember that, yeah. Let's do a poll. So, I mean, obviously the poll only allows 4 options here, but we got 9/11, Connecticut, Boston Marathon, and COVID. So what does everybody think was the biggest one? I mean, it's tough. I'm between. I mean, let me wait for everybody to vote, and then I'll give mine. Let's see what the voters do. Okay, Don't Man says, for me, COVID was the breaking point. Yeah, for a lot of people. Oh, Chilster says Flat Earth. Yeah, Flat Earth should have definitely been an option. yeah, Flat Earth. But Flat Earth wasn't really like a singular event, though, so maybe not. Yeah, Flat Earth was not really a singular event, because even though the main rollout happened somewhere around 2015 when it got popular, a lot of people never even heard of it until maybe 2016, 2017, 2018. So I don't there wasn't like one specific flat Earth event though. So actually it shouldn't be on this because it wasn't a singular dated event. It was kind of like a slow rollout on the interweb. I just said interweb. On the interwebs, yes. Okay. Oh yeah, moon landing. I forgot to put the moon landing on. But as it happened though. As it happened. Justin, are you old enough for the moon landing? Did you watch that live? Yeah, I want to specifically designate as it happened. Yeah, Connecticut is the Connecticut incident. Sovereign Searcher. That's how I have it on here. Yeah, Connecticut was kind of big too. I'm going to give my ranking in a moment after everybody gets a chance to vote here that wants to vote. There was also no option for Too Triggered to answer, but Yeah, I wouldn't sleep on Boston Marathon too, because I do remember as it was happening, there was a bit of hoopla around it. There were people calling shenanigans on Boston Marathon as well. So we probably shouldn't sleep on that one. Justin says, as it happened, COVID all day. Yeah, but COVID yeah, I mean, it's so tough. Yeah, I'm between COVID and 9/11 as the most. It's probably COVID because there's more people online during COVID than during 9/11. I mean, obviously people didn't have to be online to call shenanigans, but oh, JFK, I forgot. Pinto Sack says Bruce is so old his wake up was JFK. I totally forgot JFK. But even with JFK, yes, there were people calling shenanigans as it happened, but I don't think there were as many as called shenanigans later. Like, especially when the JFK movie came out in the early 90s. I would say way more people were calling shenanigans then than at the time. Same thing with the moon landing. Like, I'm like at the time. This is at the time. So I guess yeah, it probably the polls probably 61% said COVID. I think that's accurate. 32% said not 34 oh no, it's 59% COVID, 34% 9/11, 7% Connecticut. Yeah, that seems pretty accurate. I'll end the poll. That seems pretty accurate. Flat Bob says, I think every time something big happens, people already assume it's not as advertised because we already know they've lied about literally every single thing before. Yeah, if you're one of the people that know, though. Because if you're one of the coincidence theorists, and they've started worshiping cultists, who think, I think this will be an appropriate image. Let me bring up one of my favorite images to trigger coincidence theorists. I've had this isn't a new one, so I'm sure most of you have already seen it before. It's just so fun. The first time I saw it, it's just so funny because it's almost like the body language of this guy. Like the body language is just hilarious here. So anytime I hear someone say the government would never do that, you got the labeled cabinets here: MK Ultra, Tuskegee experiment, poisoning of St. Louis, poisoning of foster children, MK Naomi, Operation Mockingbird, Operation Northwoods. I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, you got Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And the coincidence, of course, the coincidence theorists pretend that those weren't conspiracies or they just ignore them outright. But yeah, so if you're not one of the people that know they lied about everything, then a new event, you wouldn't assume they're lying because they lied about everything before. So a wake-up event would be like, oh, wait a second. This is not as advertised. And then wait a second, what else isn't as advertised? Because Flat Earth does that a lot too, but Flat Earth wasn't really a singular event. But when people look at Flat Earth, regardless of whether Flat Earth is true or not, that's not what we discussed here on Mindshock, obviously. We only discuss the argumentation, the logic. I don't make conclusions of any kind. But questioning Flat Earth, questioning globe Earth, questioning the nature of reality, that's a wake-up call because you're like, wait a second. Because if the Earth is a globe, clearly it's not a globe because of the reasons given by the mainstream personalities, which is why I do the logical analysis breakdowns of Flat Earth debate, because it's so hilarious. If you're new here on Mindshocks, one of my theories, regardless of whether the Earth is flat or a globe, that's not what this is about, but the psyop is they intentionally get the worst defenders of the globe Earth to intentionally make the worst arguments possible to increase Flat Earth membership, to increase the strife and discord in the world, to roll out martial law and the New World Order easier. Now, again, this has nothing to do with the true shape of the Earth. It could be a globe, could be flat, whatever. But if their goal is to establish this New World Order and they need a certain amount of social unrest and distrust in governments, that's one way to achieve it. Truth Trollette says, the rest of my family doesn't question anything, just believe what they hear in the media, and if I say anything opposite, I'm crazy and get yelled at to shut up and never mention it again. Yeah, it's messed up. A lot of people's families are like that. I mean, I should do a podcast on family. There's actually quite there's actually quite a bit. I don't know how deep I want to go into this rabbit hole. The reincarnation soul trap, that theory, the prison planet theory, or if it's simply some kind of a test to give you intentionally challenging family members for whatever soul cycle experience, possibly even crafted by yourself. There's a theory that your higher dimensional self actually gets to choose the parameters of your earthly experience. I think that's a relatively separate theory from the reincarnation soul trap, where it's kind of against your will by tricking you. But there's another theory that we are of the will of our higher dimensional beings. We're experiencing life in this earthly realm as we designed it intentionally. And part of the fulfillment is overcoming challenges. Because if you've done this many times before, like when you're playing a video game or whatever, if it's just on super easy mode, it's going to get bored after the first... It's going to get so boring after the first couple run-throughs. Like, you want to play it on the higher difficulty. Something else is here, says, I'm Team Soul Trap Prison Planet. Yeah, I think there's holes in a lot of the theories. I think there's holes on the theories of both ends on both of these competing theories. And let's not fall for false dichotomy logical fallacies. There could be many other theories. I mean, I don't think those are the only two. And if I really had to guess, I would guess the real truth is not either one of them. Of course, just a guess. I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. It just, there seem to be holes in both of those theories. Crystal Gem says the big clue is the fact that it's a big news event. Yeah. Yeah. Haley says, I think COVID had the biggest wake-ups because people saw and experienced firsthand their rights being stripped from them. Yeah, I mean, there were all those memes about, if you ever wondered what you would do in Nazi Germany or whatever, well, now you know. Well, what's crazy, too, there were also all those memes about Star Wars and all these movies about freedom, and then the people that like these movies, they behave just like the stormtroopers or the brainless bootlicker peons that just go along with the corrupt authorities. So, yeah, definitely woke a lot of people up, no question. Also, obviously it was relatively recent, so it had the most amount of people online in constant communication with each other through all these different social media apps permanently plugged in. So, naturally, like, if all of this tech was around during all the other events, then it would be just as big, but it wasn't, so... And also because, with Operation Lockstep or whatever, Alex Jones, I think he broke that first, where all these different governments and all these different countries all had the same measures rolling out at the same time. So that's kind of unique as well. So that's probably why COVID was the biggest. Sovereign Searcher says, dude, I love when we talk about the Connecticut situation, but man, we have to look over that article I have posted. I cannot stress enough how eye-opening it is, people. Oh, wow. Les Xylophone breaking out the Ted Kaczynski. You talking about Ted Kaczynski? How right was Ted K, though? Wow, that manifesto really is something, isn't it? Chilster Deluxe says, so is having a multicultural population. Well, that's another rabbit hole. I don't think YouTube would like that rabbit hole being discussed. Lightning 300 MI says, yes, the big news event. Sheep will get excited. Something else is here. Says, I hope more than anything to be wrong and it's not that grim. It just always seemed to answer the most questions for me. Here's another thought, though. If our reality is created by our consciousness, and there's also a collective consciousness, the theory could, like, theoretically, you could have mutually exclusive models simultaneously existing. It's like, as above, so below, heaven and hell. So the earthly realm, and earth is actually an anagram for heart. And some people think that the truth cannot be known, it can only be felt through the heart. Your instinct. Listen to your heart. Heart, earth. So if you, it's almost like that theory, the prison planet theory could be true, but it could be anything. Like, look at the people that are thriving and happy in the world, and look at the people that are suffering. It's like heaven and hell simultaneously existing in the same realm. So, yeah, not that it wouldn't answer questions for you specifically in your existence, but if it's all manifested by your consciousness, what does that mean? Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue, but that's kind of how I look at it, where it's almost like the belief in it being true makes it true. Belief, believe, be, lie, live the lie, live the lie of your life. Sovereign Searcher says, hey, Bruce, we should do a deep dive into Milton William Cooper, a.k.a. Bill Cooper. He exposed Alex Jones way before his time. Yes, I went over that somewhat on the Bill Cooper podcast, Project Bluebeam. I'll re-upload the clip just focusing on Bill Cooper. I didn't do an entire episode on Bill Cooper specifically exposing Alex Jones. I actually have another expose on Alex Jones coming up. I don't even want to drop this name because I think I dropped it last time right before the main Mindshock channel went down. Because we were talking about this guy. I'm not going to say his full name then. Matthew N. did an expose. And Matthew N. had an early death. That's all I'll say about that. But I will re-upload Is Alex Jones Bill Hicks. I'll get that back up in the next couple days. AJD says, COVID lasted a long time. Enough time so that people had the chance to start seeing through it. If they didn't, after a couple of years of COVID, they're hopeless. Well, see, I don't know if I would say anybody's hopeless. Certain people just need a harder wake-up than others. Like, some people need to literally be slapped in the face personally. And maybe there's a certain contingent that are too mentally far gone, but I think most people, if it hits them hard enough and it hits them close enough, they'll wake up. Now, obviously, yeah, you could say a certain percentage are so fluoridated and far gone mentally that their family members literally died and they still didn't open their eyes, but... Or maybe even they were on their deathbed, and if they survived, their eyes are still closed. But, I mean, it's a certain amount of mental weakness as well. It's just, it's difficult to believe, for certain coincidence theorists, that they just don't have the mental strength to believe that there's corrupt people out there that do bad things for money, and or power, and or sadistic pleasure. Pinto Sack says, my best friend, who was also my boss, fired me for not getting the jab, no longer my friend. Where's your lawsuit, my friend? Because, yeah, that's been big news this past year. That's actually one of the highlights, probably, of the past, and mostly the past year, but even 2023, I believe, the first lawsuits started being won. But 2024 was big for people winning the lawsuits for the wrongful terminations regarding not getting certain medical treatments. the rights violation of that. Truth Trollette says, every time I told my mom to look at something objectively, it seemed like she wanted to wash my mouth out with soap. I've discussed this in the past. When try to get people to wake up, never discuss the actual topic. Only discuss the basic ideas of logic, like logical fallacies. And you can even apply it to fun stuff, like, I don't know, movies or TV shows, like pointing out plot holes and then explaining the fallacies and why they're fallacies. So, like, on a non-triggering, non-controversial topic of any kind, just like pop culture stuff, could be food stuff, why people like or dismiss certain foods, whatever, and just point out it's a logical fallacy. Why is it a logical fallacy? How does the logical fallacy work? And after, like, and this is a long-term process. You can't just immediately jump to that and then 30 seconds later, oh, by the way, 9/11 this. So it's a long-term process, but once they get really comfortable with the fallacies, then you can slow burn in, like, certain aspects of certain conspiracies without dismissing the event as a whole. Like, point out only one little aspect that wouldn't necessarily disprove the official narrative, and try to get them to work the logic and logical fallacies in an aspect of a particular conspiracy that wouldn't prove the whole thing fake anyway. So that way they wouldn't get triggered, they don't need a lot of mental strength, just like one of the most innocuous aspects. And it's almost like you dismiss that first, then a slightly less innocuous one, and then you slowly get in, because they've already pre-established the fallacies at that point. Now, some people, obviously, they might be too mentally far gone, but, you know, in general, that's how I would do it, and have done it. And it's funny, because once you plant the seeds in the brain, like, I've literally had people call me 10 years later and say, oh, by the way, like, because people that I've had debates with regarding whatever, 9/11, it could be whatever. And the seeds were planted, and sometimes they needed a decade to grow. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's usually, if I would guess, the wake-up process on someone who has the tools to wake up, I would say it's probably 6 months-ish or less. Yeah, there's not that many people who called me 10 years later, but there were some. Wow, Big Pine Sailing says, my wife had an impaction during the government lockdowns. She had to go to the hospital. She was the only patient there. I had to sleep in the parking lot for 3 days. They wouldn't let me in. Wow. Truth Trollette says, she's too emotional. She thinks she knows more than I do when it comes to medical issues because she's an indoctrinated RN. Well, you could also, well, yeah, that stuff. You could also point out how all of these so-called medical issues and all of the knowledge in the medical textbooks changes every couple of years. I mean, a good fallacy to start with would be, yeah, the appeal to authority logical fallacy and the genetic logical fallacy. Because, like, if some kind of homeless, crazy guy is screaming 1 + 1 is 2, and you have a math degree, and just for the sake of argument, and let's obviously it wouldn't be that equation, but and you say 1 + 1 is 3, and the crazy homeless guy says 1 + 1 is 2, your math degree doesn't make you right. I mean, that's just a basic fallacy. And even in any medical issue, you have you always have many doctors on both sides of every issue. Every single medical issue, there's doctors on both sides. So they both have the credentials and the degrees. That's why, again, the credentials fallacy as well. Pinto Sack says, the people who say they won't comply again will 100% do what they're told again. It depends. No. I think it depends. Because the people that did comply, that woke up, and I mean, they're totally changed their life around now. And they woke up. So I think they won't comply. Or are you talking about the people who say they won't comply that aren't really awake, that didn't really wake up? Maria says, I think your mom is my mom. Pinto Sack says, new theory, Bruce McGuire and Maxwell Powers are the same person. Yeah, I don't get that theory. I mean, everything about us is so different, including like, forget the content of what we're saying, but even just the tempo of how we talk is completely different. I mean, our pronunciations and a lot of things, everything's different. Sovereign Searcher says, Bruce, what do you believe about Earth? Just your personal opinion. Is it a globe or flat? Well, as I've said many times, like, I don't why would I have an opinion or conclusion on something if there's not enough information to make that determination? I did outline something, what I think is the easiest way to prove the shape of the Earth. You have planes with colored exhausts, drones filming all around them with many boats for line of sight verification, making the trip from the tip of South America, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand, and also simultaneously between the tip of South Africa and the tip of South America and the southern part of Australia and New Zealand. Ideally, also islands in between all of those places. So if you had flights with colored exhausts, and they have different colors, let's get some chemtrails up in here, harmless exhaust, of course, and drones streaming live, verifying all this, and people in boats along the way so they could also verify everything that's on the drones. Then you could verify if Antarctica is what is claimed to be. Until then, I mean, it's kind of tough, because without appealing to faith and fallacies, how can you determine the true model of the Earth? AJD says Maxwell and Sasquatch. And Truth Trollette says we all need Bruce's phone number so we can call him in 10 years. Oh, wow. Maria says, I don't think I have the time or patience. My mom is almost 95. Wow. 95 and still functioning well? That's cool. Good. Yeah, I mean, there's that old expression, no offense to your mom, there's no fool like an old fool. It's like, the more ingrained you are in your thinking, the more it's reflexive. Where you're not even, the metacognition, I mean, maybe, I guess the best route for her would just be reading books on metacognition. I mean, I did a podcast on metacognition, thinking about thinking, like examining why you think what you think. Like, not about any specific topic, just the mechanisms of how those beliefs were instilled. And yeah, I mean, the more you do something, the more you're going to be used to doing it. So if you don't apply logic and reason, the more time goes by without applying it, you're going to be less likely to apply it. So yeah, 95 is up there. But I mean, there are people, I mean, you could find people, they're making videos, you know, that are waking up in their 70s and 80s. I don't know if I've seen 90s, but there was some guy who was making videos about, like, can't believe the government did this or that. He was like 80 or something. So yeah, nothing's impossible, of course, but yeah. Oh, wow. Truth Trollette says, after she has suffered from and gotten a settlement for taking a med that causes heart issues, and the times they removed or snipped parts of me during surgery, one would think she would understand. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I know people like that, too. They've literally suffered at the hands of the incompetent and the corrupt establishment. Actually, I'm going to name drop James Renner here. I'm going to name drop James Renner of the Maura Murray case, because he's pretty cool, by the way. Like, this isn't an attack on him in any way. I've actually discussed this, I think, on the episode on James Renner and the Maura Murray series, the longest running series on Mindshock. I should have all the episodes up in another week or two, max. I'm doing pretty good. Most of the playlists are back up already. I need another week or two to get the rest of them up. But he had a run-in with a police officer in a courtroom. So I'm pretty sure he's like kind of like a hardcore Democrat from his Twitter postings. But no, all credit to him for bringing attention to a lot of these cases. The Amy Mihalovic case, the Maura Murray case. And now he's working on the cruise disappearance, the Bradley case. And yeah, I mean, he does a lot of good work. All the credit to him, but he had some kind of run-in with a police officer where the officer was claiming that he assaulted the officer, and luckily there was a witness, so that didn't go anywhere. But you would think after the exposure to that corruption, he'd be a little bit more, like, he personally went through that. And he was lucky enough to have a witness, but, you would think that, something would click there, but I don't know. Because he is a little bit dismissive of police conspiracies. Flat Bob says, well, Bruce, that would only disprove the AE map. If you did that plane test, it would still work on a stereographic VR model of flat Earth. Well, this is only... Yeah, this is to disprove the globe. This is to disprove the size of Antarctica on the globe. Because if all those continents add up, then the next level test would be in the opposite direction. I mean, obviously, circumnavigate north to south. But just as a starter, because that's a lot more involved to circumnavigate north to south. I mean, that's tough. But to do this test, it would, because if Antarctica really is only, 12,000 miles in circumference approximately, instead of 60,000 like on the flat Earth map approximately, like, that's the way to verify the size of Antarctica and its position in relation to the other continents. Because if that all adds up, yeah, that still doesn't necessarily prove anything, but that sets the stage. But if the Earth is flat and Antarctica is a ring of ice around all the continents, then that test would demonstrate that Antarctica is not what is claimed on the globe model. Okay, so let's get back to New Year's Eve talk, because I'm getting ready to go here. So we're gonna wrap this up in a little bit. Pinto Sack says, have you talked about the Antarctica 24-hour sun mission? A little bit, not a lot. Last one of the Q&As, we went over it a little bit. SJSU Philosopher says, the shape of the shadow on the moon, Bruce. What about it? What are you talking about? Shape of the shadow? What shadow? During when? Lightning 300 MI says, watch radar for faraway storms. Get clear sight of the horizon in that direction. Use binoculars. It's mind-blowing to see lightning 300 miles away. Horizon is infinite. SJSU Philosopher says, the fact that all heavenly bodies are spheres, roughly. Well, how do you know they're spheres? They're lights in the sky. They're celestial bodies. Have you seen the footage not from NASA? I mean, they kind of look like they're in water. Water's above, water's below. Again, I'm not claiming the Bible's true or untrue, but... SJSU Philosopher, have you seen any of the Flat Earth analysis on debate? Like the debate analysis I did? Because these are all basic. These are one-on-one arguments. Like, if you're in a room and you're looking at all the light bulbs, even if the light bulbs are spherical, that's nothing to do with the shape of the floor. But even aside from that, you don't know that they're spheres. They're lights in the sky. I mean, the moon even looks transparent. Like, how would you know if they're holograms or not? Like, have you ever been to a planetarium? Like, I mean, these are circular reasoning logical fallacies. Because you took the scientism position in the textbooks, and you're claiming that's true in a circular reasoning fallacy. Because if you're being logical and scientific, you have no clue what they are. Nobody does. SJSU Philosopher, where's the laser test work that a flat earther tried in Netflix film Behind the Curve? Yeah, I mean, that's talked about a bunch of times. He messed up the experiment, but you can find a bunch of them, you can find a bunch of those laser tests. Yeah, they're pretty cool. There's that lake, there's the frozen lake in Russia, right? That huge lake, and they did a laser test there with practically no deviation. Very curious. I mean, that wouldn't really prove it's not a globe either. Because, again, because nobody's claiming it's a perfect, smooth sphere. So those fluctuations, that's not really a flat Earth proof. A better proof would be the infrared. Infrared, where you can see just crazy far, hundreds and hundreds of miles. That would be underneath the curve of the Earth if the Earth was approximately 25,000 miles in circumference. Have you seen those, SJSU Philosopher? I've seen you in some chats. I don't remember if they were the Flat Earth ones, though. Oh, SJSU Philosopher says the crescent moon. Yeah, the crescent moon. Yeah, that's all 101. So you actually can see that there's the Selahelion or Selenion, the Selenion. I always mess that up. That's the toughest eclipse to say. There's two names for it. There's the Selahelion and the Selenelion. Selenehelion or Selenelion. So you can see the eclipse when both the moon and the sun are above the horizon. So clearly it wouldn't be the shape of the Earth causing that. So that was in the Flat Earth Dave versus so-called Professor Dave. So you can check that out. That's on the channel with all the visuals and everything. And then, of course, in the ancient cosmology, there's the third. There's the third luminary, or well, it's called. I don't know if it's the third body, the black sun, which if there's like an opaque beyond the human light spectrum, if that's also moving along, that could be causing the phases of the moon. And even on NASA's website, you can find information on opaque celestial bodies. They don't claim that there's one causing the eclipses of the moon, but they do demonstrate that there are celestial bodies out there in the universe that cannot be seen by the human eye, but they can block other celestial bodies that can be seen. SJSU Philosopher says most heavenly bodies rotate. Yeah, no one's disputing that there's a cathedral of stars and celestial bodies moving above the Earth or appearing to move above the Earth. You can watch star lapses, time lapses of stars. They're pretty cool. Hello, Wendy. Yeah, we're just wrapping up here. SJSU Philosophers coming in here with Flat Earth 101 questions. Yeah, SJSU, some of the most compelling arguments are actually the infrared. Because I wouldn't say that the laser test, I don't know what to make of that, because if the mountains and valleys and lakes are all weird shapes and sizes, and they would fluctuate, so you could have, like, let's say a flat part, like, imagine a billiard ball, and you could just carve out a lot of flat areas within it so that the entire body can still be a globe. But across, like, if you look at infrared across, like, entire oceans and seas, I mean, that would be a lot tougher because you're talking such a huge scale. So the infrared is I think the infrared's more interesting than the laser tests. SJSU Philosopher says, what about Eratosthenes' proof? Proof? What proof? A guy that might not have ever existed said that there were some shadow. Like, how did he communicate with the other guy that was hundreds of miles away to compare notes on the shadows? To know where they were at the time. I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. Even in the mainstream, they admit that they lost the details of the experiment. So they made a claim that he proved the shape of the Earth. Not to mention, without knowing how far away the sun is, that's not a scientific experiment, so that's not a proof. If you're familiar with the scientific method, the scientific experiment, I mean, you need to have your independent variables in your controls, and you need to be able to clearly define variable. So if you don't even know how far away the sun is, what is a stick casting a shadow prove about the shape or size of the Earth? I mean, that's just goofery. That's why I think the whole flat Earth thing might be a psyop, because that's one of the dumbest arguments imaginable, where you have actually no verification that that event ever even happened. And then even if it did, how would it prove anything about anything? SJSU Philosopher says, are you committing the genetic fallacy by denying based on them being one-on-one arguments? No, because I clearly explained why they were fallacious. If I had just called them one-on-one arguments, that would actually be an ad hom, because I would be, or appeal to incredulity. That would be ad hom saying, oh, they're stupid argument. But I clearly explained why, therefore it's not a fallacy. You've been here a while, you should know that. A fallacy is when you do something instead of actually addressing the argument. I clearly addressed all parts of the argument and explained why they were fallacious. Flat Bob says, you can do the Eratosthenes on a flat table and do the math to make your flat table spherical. Yeah, that's post hoc logical fallacies where you just plug in the variables required to match your theory. SJSU Philosopher says, the third body violates Occam's razor. No, it doesn't. So clearly you don't know what Occam's razor is. Occam's razor is this remnant, this medieval remnant, which might not even be true, that postulates that all things being equal, the theory that requires the least amount of assumptions is more likely to be true. Not necessarily true, because nature is very complex and there's many examples to the contrary, but you assumed a lot. So the third celestial body is not an assumption, because that's proven that there are opaque bodies. You can actually see them through telescopes, and NASA does not dispute this. You can see this all on the NASA's website. Also, if you're familiar with the light spectrum and what humans can see, because the human eye actually can't see infrared. That's why you need infrared goggles or an infrared camera. So that's not an assumption. You're assuming it's the Earth's shadow on the moon. That's your assumption. So you're adding levels of assumption there. So even with an Occam's razor, that's against you. Not that Occam's razor is legitimate in any way, but even if it were, you're making the assumptions there. You're making more assumptions. And again, I didn't make the positive claim that it was definitely some kind of opaque celestial body. I didn't make that claim. I just threw out a possibility. I'm not saying that that's true. The same way I'm not saying that it's the Earth's shadow. You said it was the Earth's shadow, therefore you're the one making the assumption. Just Reporting says, just started to watch the Girl Scout murders. Did not know about that as a teenager. Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, that's a tough case. That's a really tough case. SJSU Philosopher says, Justin Johnson, water fails to prove flat Earth since underwater mountains have gravitational effects on the surface. Well, now you're making another assumption. You're assuming gravitational effects. Which gravitational effects are you assuming? Mass attracting mass? Based on mass alone? Because even Isaac Newton didn't believe that. So you don't seem to be up to date on even the theory of gravity you're assuming to be true fallaciously. Again, check out Professor Dave, so-called Professor Dave versus Flat Earth Dave here on Mindshock. Check out that analysis, and then also check out the Bryant Myers analysis. And because most of those arguments are all clearly gone over there with visual representation. Big Pine Sailing says, measure a shadow. That always cracks me up when people break that one out. Yeah, I don't know if I could think of a dumber argument. And Eratosthenes proved the shape of the Earth by looking at shadows and somehow communicating with a guy hundreds of miles away. And this all happened thousands of years ago with no verification. Like, that's the proof you're breaking out, the alleged proof? Of all the supposed proofs, like, if it's that obvious, you need to go back thousands of years to come up with the proof. Oh, man. Oh, that's a funny one. SJSU philosopher says if a body is rotating and curved each time observed, then a sphere is the Occam's razor explanation. Well, no, it's not, because you're making that assumption. How the moon is not the moon is not spinning on its axis, is it? We always see the same face. How is that proof of a sphere? Like, if the moon really, like, maybe it is a sphere and it's somehow, like, the mainstream explanation, the scientism explanation is just somehow it's magically locked to where we never see the dark side. But if it really were a sphere and it really was clearly rotating and we could see every side, if we could see it rotating, then it would be a sphere. Because if it was different on each side and you saw it gradually as it spun on its own axis while rotating around the Earth, then that would prove that the moon is a sphere. It still wouldn't prove the Earth is a sphere. Because again, have you ever been in a planetarium? The celestial bodies in the sky do not determine the floor. So it sounds like you don't understand what Occam's razor is. But even Occam's razor, everything you're saying, you're violating Occam's razor with your assumptions. But again, I'm not claiming Occam's razor is legitimate in any way. Because the main problem with Occam's razor is all things being equal. All things are never equal. I mean, how many cases are all things? I mean, in experiments where you have a controlled environment, I mean, maybe. But out in nature, in the world, when are two theories are both equal? I mean, I haven't ever really seen an example of that, other than maybe in a laboratory where every single variable is being controlled. SJSU philosopher, gravity condenses dust in 360 degrees. Okay, your homework is to watch the Bryant Myers flat Earth debate here on Mindshock. Watch that and then come back, because I'm not gonna, like, you need the visual. You really need the visual representations. Some of these concepts are just tough. SJSU philosopher, fallacies address arguments, but do so Wait, what are you talking about? You say fallacies are... What are you talking about? Fallacies are illogical? Welcome, Run Boston Bear in the house for New Year's Eve. Yeah, let's get off of Flat Earth here, because this is SJSU philosopher. Well, that would also be a fallacy. If most bodies are spheres, then the moon probably is. Well, you're just assuming, and how do you know the other bodies are spheres? You're stacking assumptions on top of assumptions. So you're actually going against, you're just assuming. But even if that were true, it still wouldn't make the Earth a sphere. SJSU says, I have been in a planetarium. Right, okay. So if we live in some kind of simulated reality, there's many theories about that, and the celestial bodies are holographic in nature, I mean, that wouldn't prove anything about the Earth. But yeah, check those out, and then on the next Flat Earth Live Q&A, then you can jump in on that one after watching those two. SJSU philosopher says, I teach Occam's razor for a living. Uh-oh. That's problematic. Then you should definitely know better, unless you're just triggered and your logic switch got turned off. Because you just made a ton of assumptions and circular reasoning fallacies to justify everything you just said. But if you watch those debates with the visual representations, that'll actually address all of that. Sovereign Searcher says, Bruce, let's talk about Columbine. On my page, I have a video of them moving dummies outside of the school before the incident. We should be able to watch it. Okay. I don't really want to talk about Columbine right now, actually. This is New Year's Eve. On the Columbine one, I actually haven't watched those videos simply because if it's not a dummy, that's not something I want to watch. I know a lot of people claim it's a dummy, but yeah, I don't watch any actual crime scene footage involving any kind of bodies or whatever. I believe in respecting the dead. Not that, certain crime texts or whatever coroners can't respect the dead while doing their job, but that's just not something I want to see. That's not something I want to go into online in videos or whatever. SJSU says, you said a fallacy didn't address the argument. No, I did not say that. Where did I say that? SJSU philosopher says, fallacies can address arguments and do so in logically flawed ways. Yes. Okay, anyway, yes, SJSU philosopher, check out those two debates and then jump in on the next Flat Earth Live Q&A. And, yeah. SJSU philosopher says logic instructor. You're a logic instructor. I mean, that's nice. That would be, if you're claiming that that somehow makes you right, then you would be committing even further fallacies. Like appeals to credentials, fallacies, appeal to authority, etc. And you have no idea what my credentials are because I never officially stated them. I may or may not have one or more degrees from some prestigious institutions that I may or may not have taught at. But I would never, I never even want to bring that up because the arguments should stand on their own if they're valid, and they should be examined on their own merit. So let's get back to New Year's Eve. Okay, one more point. SJSU philosopher says, you make as many assumptions or more, so mine is just as simpler. No, I made 0 assumptions. I gave several different options for theories. I did not assume them to be true. I did not claim they were true in any way. They were not part of any argument I made. You should also watch the video on, what's his face? Craig utterly ruins himself because Craig doesn't understand what a fallacy or an argument is. You cannot commit a fallacy if you're not making an argument. Because your argument cannot be fallacious if there is no argument. I pointed out the flaws in what you were saying. I did not claim that the Earth was not a globe. Alright, we're off of that now. Okay, so... I am Iron Scat says, I have stated before that I think you are a professor who needs to disguise your voice. I don't want to contaminate anything because it doesn't matter whether I have extensive credentials or not. Either what I'm saying is true or not true. Either it's valid or not valid in these logical analyses. It doesn't matter what my credentials are or aren't. Oh, wow, that's cool. Run Boston Bear says, y'all send me energy on January 11th. I'll be racing a 100K trail race all day. Peace, everyone. I'll catch the playback here soon. Back to editing. Whoa, wow. Hats off to Run Boston Bear, living up to his name. 100K, wow. SJSU philosopher says, I saw those debates, but I'm happy to do so again. Well, all of what you're saying was addressed there. SJSU philosopher says, you claim I was unfamiliar with Occam's razor, but I'm familiar with... I said, or your logic switch got turned off, right? I didn't say which one of those were true. But you were the one making assumptions, not me. So that's why I said you must be unfamiliar with Occam's razor, because you're the one making all the assumptions on the other celestial bodies, the Earth, etc. I'm not the one making those assumptions. That was you. And it's not an assumption that there are opaque celestial bodies. Like, you could actually see that using infrared. I mean, NASA might mean deception, but they still have they do have some fancy equipment that does work. I mean, some of their stuff is legit. I'm not going to say a lot of it, but some of their stuff is legit, particularly the stuff going on Earth. SJSU says, you argued my argument was fallacious. It was, and I clearly explained why every step of the way. Yes, your argument is completely fallacious. I made no argument as to what the truth of an eclipse was. I pointed out why your argument was fallacious, correct? AC says, have you ever read any of Miles Mathis' papers he wrote about John Bonet or SH? Yes. Yeah, I've read a lot of his stuff. It's very interesting. There's also some problematic issues with some of the stuff he wrote, like on OJ and some of the other cases. But yeah, no, I think he's pretty smart. A lot of good points. Some people think that he's a shill and he's intentionally mixing stuff up to confuse and confuzzle. What is AC, what is AC, what is that abbreviation for? I'm just curious, if you don't mind sharing. SJSU Philosopher says, you said I was unfamiliar with Occam's razor, but I'm familiar with it at work. Your own statement, okay, you're claiming to be familiar with it. If you were familiar with it, how do you not understand you're the one who made all of the assumptions? You also don't seem to understand that Occam's razor is only to be invoked when two theories equally explain something. Equally. They're not equal in any way. Then the one with the fewest assumptions should be utilized, because it's more likely to be true. So not only are these not equal explanations, but what you claimed actually was the side with more assumptions. Because it looks flat. The Earth looks flat, right? We can agree with that. It doesn't feel like it's spinning. We can agree with that. So, and the other celestial bodies are lights in the sky. There's no assumption that they're spheres. So you're the one making all the assumptions here. I'm not saying you're wrong, though. I'm not saying you're wrong. But you made all the assumptions in a clearly fallacious argument. Okay, anyway. I made no argument to a position. So the position was you're claiming the Earth is a globe, right? And you're claiming the Earth is casting the shadow on the moon. I analyzed your argument. If you want to say I made a meta argument about your argument, sure. But I clearly explained why and backed it up. Did you not understand the explanations? What did I assume? I assumed nothing. I pointed out your assumptions. Because I am not assuming the Earth is a globe or the Earth is flat. You have to add a bunch of assumptions for the globe Earth. And it might still be true. That's why the fallacy exists. Just because you committed all the fallacies doesn't mean you're wrong about the conclusion, but it does mean that you argued completely fallaciously and in violation of Occam's razor. Flat Bob says he's just trolling at this point. SJSU Philosopher says you assumed what was possible. No, I didn't. Anything's possible. I'm not the one making the claim. It's one or the other. All right. Anyway, so you teach logic and you don't understand the burden of proof. You don't understand shifting the burden of proof fallacy. It's not an assumption that they're not equal. I mean, you think it's equal to assume all the heavenly bodies are spheres as it is to clearly observe that there are lights in the sky, because that's not an assumption that there are lights in the sky. They are lights in the sky. What is curved? What are you talking about? You assume possible holograms and projectors. No, I don't. Maybe I just threw out different possibilities. I didn't claim they were true. You made all the assumptions because you claimed they were true. I asked the question, how do you know that they're not? Yeah, if you want to say I made a meta argument, because the actual argument was about the shape of the Earth, the cosmology. That's the argument being discussed. You didn't back up anything. You said it was the shape of... You said the Earth was casting the shadow without proving how. Alright, anyway. I didn't assume infrared tests exist. Infrared tests do exist. Infrared is real. So are you claiming it's not real? Okay, anyway. I did not claim that the third body was the reason why. I didn't claim that that was true. So you don't understand what an argument is. Okay. I'm done with SJSU Philosopher. You're serious? You're not trolling? Okay, well then, you need to brush up on all those definitions because you're missing all the basics. You don't even know what an argument is. Okay. Pinto Sacks 2025, The Return of Johnny Mills. Nobody ever brings up Johnny Mills. Everybody likes Maxwell and JR. They get all the attention, and poor Johnny Mills never gets brought up. E. Schultz 89 says, Bruce, so glad I found you again. Yeah, I'm getting all the videos back up on this. Okay. So, what is the final point of tonight? So we discussed Janus, January, god of chaos, gateways, war. It seems like every new calendar is less accurate than the previous calendar. Is that all by design? Is it all simply to make humans as confused as possible and just continue running on the hamster wheel, being distracted by bread and circus, entertainment, sports, Hollyweird? Lord Zed in the chat. Hello, Lord Zed. You missed a lot of stuff here. You missed a lot of stuff here, Lord Zed. Because I'm wrapping this up right now. I am not a slave to Saturn, aka Satan, the god of time. My energy will not be siphoned for any reason. Do not consent to the interdimensional reptilian alien shapeshifter demons trying to siphon your energy. So, we kind of summed up the year a little bit. We got the return of the Donald Trump. I mean, this is going to be a crazy year, 2025. Yeah, so what I started saying before was 2020 was kind of the year of perfect sight. Actually, this was the train of thought I left off on before SJSU took everything off the rails. So, 2020, COVID, the year of COVID, was also the year of perfect sight, 2020 vision, which is why I brought up which event woke up the most people. So all of those synchronicities, whatever you want to call them, lining up. Now, 2025 is a very round year. So what will it hold? Definitely will be curious. Definitely will be curious. What are everybody's predictions for 2025? Let's round out this stream for predictions for 2025, and then we'll call it a night. Caillou says, what was the most exciting year in the last decade? Was it this one? Ooh, that's a tough one. What do you mean by exciting? I mean, that was rough. I mean, I would actually say 2020, right? Because everything got shut down. People got woken up. I mean, it was actually a very calm, peaceful time. Like, there wasn't a lot of people out. I went out every day. I liked driving. I mean, a lot of less people were driving. It was kind of nice. It actually reminded me a little bit about the early 90s. Before everywhere got, like, overpopulated. Before every metropolitan area got too crazy. Flat Bob says, Bruce, 2025 is going to be insane. Pandemonium and chaos. Also a total expletive show. My prediction. Well, you got the Donald back in the White House, if that happens. Some people are postulating there's going to be certain events. Everything from martial law rollout to just complete government shutdown, and a new inauguration will not take place. But, I mean, I don't know. A new pandemic getting rolled out. I mean, it's, Sarah G says, time to watch The Fog. Yeah, The Fog possibly setting the stage for some kind of Project Bluebeam. If you haven't checked out that podcast here on Mindshock, check that out. Some kind of staged alien invasion as some kind of precedent to usher in a new world order, which was supposedly the game plan for at least a century now, exposed by the one and only Serge Monast, who uttered the same points as Bill Cooper after him, and to a certain extent Alex Jones after that. Now, Serge Monast and Bill Cooper allegedly no longer with us, while Alex Jones remains alive. What that means, I do not know. I do not know, but if this fog is some kind of, is laying down some kind of projector screen technology for these 3D holograms or whatever, I mean, who knows? Will Project Bluebeam commence in 2025? Just reporting says, may be pretty frantic, but won't be involved. We'll just watch with some popcorn. Yeah, I don't know if it's toxic fog or it's just smart fog nanotech to assist with Project Bluebeam or something of that nature. Flatbob says the Simpsons did predict him getting unalived. Do you think the Donald's gonna get unalived before Inauguration Day? Heracles says a lot of psyops will be coming, in my opinion. I mean, that's practically a given at this point. I mean, that's practically a given. Lord Zed says we can't predict it. We have to create it with our minds. I mean, I want to know what Steven Seagal is going to be up to in 2025. That's what I want to know. Steven Seagal might be humanity's last hope. Notice how COVID and all this stuff, nobody tried to roll out anything in the U.S. while Steven Seagal was still in country. The border relatively secured while Steven Seagal was patrolling it. As soon as Steven Seagal leaves the country, everything starts going downhill. So Steven Seagal moved to Russia on a permanent basis somewhere around 2016. And then everything kind of goes downhill after that. Flatbob says our border was legit secured under Seagal. Yeah, I mean, I have the metrics. You can check out the Seagal podcast on that. Seagal's back. The entire Seagal playlist is back online only on Mindshock. Justin Johnson says Seagal 2028. Yeah. Lord Zed says my prediction is God destroys the Satanists this year. Yeah. Yeah, we need to know what Steven Seagal is up to in 2025. Only time will tell. And then on the next live Q&A, we obviously need more Roller Jam. But thanks again, everybody, for joining us for this alleged New Year's Eve 2025, allegedly coming shortly upon us. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Make sure to at least sign up for the free tier on Patreon for all the updates. YouTube doesn't always put those out. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.